Welcome back to On the Record. We're here at the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference, and I'm here with Danny DeGanis, and with Eric Strong. I got that one right.
You got that right.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you both on. So you've been, the company's name is Modular Data Protection Services, Inc.
Yes.
Long title, but you know, you can get a bigger business card these days. Tell me what it does. I know you go out and you're with data protection, making it easier for other like VARs or mostly.
We focus, yes, thanks very much, Robert. We focus on helping the channel partners out there who are delivering IT services today, whether they're managed services or recurring, IT technical support services, plug in a cloud data protection service into their current business model.
And how do you do that?
Do it through a group of alliance partnership relationships, including the Intel Hybrid Cloud Group, some business consulting organizations in the US, along with access to data center infrastructure services that enable the smaller IT service provider to actually gain access to and leverage some of the capabilities of large, very costly and highly qualified facilities and services.
So, Dan, don't worry, we're coming to you. So, Danny, what if I was a managed service provider, let's say, what would be the advantages to me of taking on your services?
So Robert, I like that question a lot. Thank you very much. So managed service providers today are being inundated with a barrage of new technologies. They're trying to roll out new technologies. Many of them are still migrating from a traditional break-fix, product-oriented business model into a recurring revenue stream. And so their resources, their capital dollars, their time are stretched way beyond the limits. And so we act as we provide the ability or enable the ability for them to plug in additional capabilities into their organization that they might not be able to afford now, or might not be able to ever get to because of all of the other tasks and all the other things that they are trying to get done within their practices. So it's really about an extension. Modular is a channel-only focus organization, so we don't sell direct to their customers. So it's which really resonates, and it enables us to have a very open and productive dialogue very, very early on in the engagement. And then it's really about, how can we help you beyond just selling them product. It's a program where we can bring from the start to the finish everything from the business consulting to, there is product elements, there might be infrastructure elements, there's support elements both on the pre and post sale. And they may have some of these and they may not, and it's a discussion really about how can we help you meet your objectives and drive better business outcomes for your customers around the theme of data protection services.
So you're both, I thought you were both wearing Intel shirts, but you're partnered with Intel.
Correct.
What's the partnership and why is that important to you?
We got into a relationship with Intel because they have a program which is to promote the consumption of hardware on a rental basis as opposed to a capital expense basis to help replace and displace older technology that seems to reside for a long period of time within the small SMB customer base. And they've coupled that with a robust catalog of application software, which you can download through a cloud portal and interface to enable that end user customer and the channel partner, therefore, upgrade and replace and create a recurring revenue opportunity for various types of applications. We approached Intel last year and talked to them about using a data protection approach as a service as one of the key adoption rates for cloud services within the SMB space. IDC and Gartner are saying at 25 to 40 or 30% of the SMB customer base is going to adopt a cloud service through 2013. That adoption rate is significant because the channel partner, if they're not getting into cloud, they're going to lose those customer relationships. So we help them easily get into that, and that's why we built this partnership with the Intel Hybrid Cloud Group.
Data protection, Robert, if I can add on to what Eric's saying, is that data protection is also a really great starting point or a jumping off point for the managed services business case. We were talking earlier before this interview about remote monitoring services. It's very popular. Depending on who you talk to, some say that it's at a saturation point. If you talk to resellers and managed service providers who are in a lot of those, what we would consider traditional managed services, it takes a lot to build the trust of the customer to turn over the network management to these folks. Whereas we look at data protection, it has a number of really nice attributes that make it a nice business model to pursue early on, because data backup, data restoration has typically been viewed as a pretty mundane task. It's something that IT managers, IT directors, owners of the company are willing to push off rather quickly. And it also has a very nice organic growth rate. So to drive the same amount of growth, you would in a hosted exchange or remote monitoring and management, most companies don't add 20 or 30 or 40% more email addresses or more computers and desktops and servers to be managed and monitored. But we probably sent 15, 20% more emails than we did last year, and more of the interactions we have in a B2B and a B2C level are being driven by electronic forms instead of paper forms. So this data is just growing. You have this really nice organic growth rate that isn't expected to change anytime soon except go up. And so it's a great jumping off point. Widely reported data protection, so whether that be data backup, cloud storage, these are the leading cloud use cases. And so it's just a really nice jumping off point, or a point for a service provider of, as I said, of any stage of their maturity to get into cloud services. It's one of the lower barriers of entry.
Yeah, I always tell people that I go under the calling it data protection,
Mm-hmm.
and I say to resellers all the time that if you don't have data protection and if you don't have security, then you aren't in this business. Now, on the other side, I go back, which is kind of funny because the two stories I talk about, that's one, and the other one fits in also exactly with what you do, and that is, I always tell people that that's what you have to do for your client. Nothing else matters if you don't do those two things. But then I come back and I say, now managed services may should be able to do that better because you can see further into the future and so on. But it's more, in my opinion, something from a reseller's point of view. They're going to go into managed services. It's something that's going to actually protect them in their whole life. Because you just can't be fighting fires every minute of your life.
Right, for sure.
And so you're touching on both areas, which is great.
There's some very complementary services that extend once you start to have a conversation about data protection. And so we talk about it as a strategic approach where it's really helping to change the dialogue that the IT service provider has with the end user customer. By talking to them about business continuity plans, about how you need to be ready in case of any business disruption. What do? You start to change the nature of the contact from a technology level individual to an owner level of a business. And you start to talk to them and change your relationship into more of a strategic business consulting role.
And quite frankly, if they're not going into a business mode, because that's where the whole industry is going.
Right.
Do you agree?
Yeah, oh yes, absolutely.
And the ones that don't, they'll either die as far
On the vine.
Or they'll live from paycheck to paycheck for the rest of their lives.
Right. And something I think, Eric's touching on, and I think you touched on it as well, is that, this isn't, when we say data protection, it's not just backup and recovery with a new marketing name on it. One of the things that we do within our program and in the dialogue that we have with these service providers is to show them how to layer in additional professional consulting services around the data set, around assuring the recovery, around being able to do drills and testing, how to evaluate, how to have a conversation about risk as it relates to the electronic or information that exists within their customers. And that is very, very different than what is going on in the marketplace, where you have a lot of these providers out there that are doing a lot of marketing. Their services might be very, very good. There's some big brands making a lot of noise right now. But what they're doing is they're taking the terms disaster recovery and business continuity, and they've kind of stole them away from the consulting world, right? And it's a big bugaboo for me that when I hear companies talk about, failing a server over or application high availability or server high availability as business continuity. That's not business continuity, right? It's an application high availability or server high availability, right? Business continuity is about planning and process and about people and making sure that all of these things collectively are in good shape. We are in the business continuity planning. That's another one of our services, and one of the risks that we can help a partner mitigate for their client is, this Eric and I experienced in the U.S. is something like a shooter in the building. You could have a shooter enter your customer's building, never put a single bullet hole in a computer monitor, server, or desktop, or printer, or anything like that. And it has nothing. It doesn't have to do with the IT suite. Business continuity. It's a big component of it, but business continuity is more than the IT suite. And so but there are some great conversations to have within aligning the cost of data, aligning the value of the data that is within the customer site with the cost of protecting it. So, if you're snapshotting data or doing imaging on data, in many cases you're evaluating that email that you sent yesterday and the email that you sent a year ago, because they're in the same snapshot. You're evaluating them the same way, and clearly, client has an outage, they want to get the stuff in the last 30 days back much faster than they want to get the stuff back in the last year. This is one element of it, right? How you store data, whether you store primary data on better storage, faster servers, or slower storage for older archive data, how you assure that you can always recover your data. These are all conversations you need to have with your customer. And the big one is RPO and RTO, and how much confusion there is around that says, what do you really want to have? Do you want to be able to assure the recoverability of your data? Or do you want to get a server up and running very, very quickly? You can do both, but you have to have a really, really big budget, right? So, most of the players are in the market space from a vendor level right now. At a vendor level, you have to kind of choose one way or the other, because you don't get the absolute assurance if you want a lot of speed. And so, as an aggregator, we can actually look at a number of different solutions and help partners make decisions and wade through all the clutter. So I know that's a long answer, so my apologies.
But if you look at it, though, when you go in, if you really want to talk to the CEO or the president or whatever that is in that company, even if it's a small company or a big company, they're not interested in hearing about what the service is and so on. They're interested in saying, what's going to make my company better, and more importantly, what's going to keep me up and running every day. And this is, I was just going to say, and I should go back, but what they're doing is, with what you're talking about, is it's giving them a way that they can come in there and say, listen, we're not just looking after your company today and keeping it up and running. Yep. We're talking all the way down the line. Like, how are we going to make sure that you're not going to run into problems, and how can we make find solutions before you even know that you have a problem?
We actually phrased the conversation around sustainability, the viability of one's business. Mm-hmm. How do you maintain that viability? How do you help them address industry impacts such as compliance and governance regulations that are becoming more prevalent in managing and monitoring a lot of businesses? And if you can't have that conversation, if you sidetrack it to just a technology IT conversation, you don't address the key business leaders' issues. And so our role is to provide the necessary expertise, knowledge, and external consulting resources to make our partners more credible in front of their customers.
I think it's perfect. You're making them, to use it's a trade name I own, but you're changing them from being a reseller or a break-fix guy and into a, say it again?
Trusted advisor.
Trusted business advisor.
Trusted
That's
business
the way we have to say it.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely.
And trademarks and registration codes, right?
Absolutely. It was a pleasure having you. One last question before we go. How long have you guys been partners?
How long have we been partners? Well, we've worked with each other.
7 years, 8 years. And
since May of last year. Sorry, we're coming back.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
So we worked together, for the last 4 years, in a couple of companies, and then we broke off and formed a partnership together in order to address some of the market opportunities we had identified when we were in the data protection, space with an application, one of the application providers.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot. I hope you both
Pleasure.
be back on the record
Thank you
sometime
very much,
soon.
Robert. Appreciate
Thank you.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.